the Coin Flip Podcast number probably a million by this point. Anyway, James Guerin, Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly hanging out with you guys. We did the AFC over under predictions. We had a good time with that one. Now we're doing the NFC over under predictions for this one, part two of that, and we'll get it underway here. Jacob, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, Martino. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. James, how is it down there in the south part of the state that's where it's hot like hell?
We doing fine. We're doing just fine down here.
Alrighty then. All right, boys. We'll start with the NFC East in this one. We'll start with the second place team, the runner up in the Super Bowl, Philadelphia Eagles. Over under is 11.5. Jacob, you'll take it first.
Man, we see quite often, time and time again, especially in the NFC, teams will go one and done with their Super Bowl trips. Either they win it, they don't get back, they appear and they don't get back. It could be tough for these teams that aren't in the AFC to return to the title game. The Eagles went 14-3 last year, and Martin, you said 11.5? 11.5. Yep, 11.5 plus 104 plus 120, depending on what sports book you bet with. But I gotta like the over. I gotta lean on that one slightly. I think they're in store for another good season. Yeah, no team is higher than an 11.5, even the Chiefs, when it comes to these regular season over-under spread predictions. So I think the Eagles will go over. I think Jalen Hurts will have another solid season. He could regress a little bit. They lose Miles Sanders, their top back, but we see running backs pretty replaceable. They add onto the defensive side of the ball as well. I think the Eagles will be in contention. I know the NFC East kind of comes and goes, per season. But I think the Eagles will still be solid. It's hard to see them falling a ton, but it's hard to see them, having the same success they did last year at 14 wins. So I'll go at 12 over.
James.
Well, the big question this offseason, the Eagles lost their offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of my Indianapolis Colts, and they lost their defensive coordinator, who I believe went to San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. So new coordinators on both sides of the ball, the offensive line getting older, but they did do very well in the draft. Now, I do expect some sort of Super Bowl hangover, just like I do with every team that loses the Super Bowl, maybe except for the Chiefs. Everybody else seems to struggle just a little bit somewhere along the lines. But with that being said, 11.5, a tough division. I think the Cowboys are going to have a bounce-back season. I like the under, but just slightly.
I'm going over on this one. They're the best team in their division. They're one of the top three teams in the NFC. Yes, they lost both coordinators. And if I'm not mistaken, James, not to correct you, I think he's the head of Arizona Cardinals now. I think former DC Philly. I could be wrong. We'll fact check it here while we're talking here. But nonetheless, losing two coordinators, replacing them, having two brand new coordinators come in who have different schemes, different ideas. I believe they promoted from inside. I don't think they hired anybody outside, but nonetheless, you have different people with different ideas. So I'm going to stick with the over. They're the best team in this division, like I said, and they're one of the top three teams in the NFC. We're not going anywhere with that one. All right, let's go to the second place team. Jacob, we talk about the Cowgirls. We always talk about them every single year. The Dallas Cowboys, they're one of the marquee teams to talk about every year. 9.5, where will the Cowboys finish?
9.5 is interesting. There's a reason that these guys in Vegas are so good at their job. The Cowboys have just been very mediocre for years now, and Dak Prescott is exactly that when it comes to the quarterback rankings. And the quarterback can often determine how far a team can go in today's society in 2023 NFL. They have Micah Parsons. I think he's set for a DPOY season. Perhaps he's the favorite. He's going to be top 3 if he's healthy, pretty much guaranteed in that running. Tony Pollard at running back, I think this should be his season to perhaps have the best season of his career. We'll see how health can hold up long term, but if he has an impact in the playoffs, that could be dangerous as well. But obviously this is a regular season video. Questions, with the contracts on the front line, offensive line. All in all, I think the Cowboys are going to go 9-8 this year. 9-8. I think a lot of people are high on them. 9.5 might be pretty low. When it comes to the odds, minus 162, minus 30 on Caesars even. But I think the Cowboys are going to go a slight under here. It's just the boys. It's just what they do. I doubt them, regardless how they look on paper.
James, this is your second favorite team in the NFL. You love to talk about these guys. Give us the reasons why the Cowboys will be over.
Yep, 8.5. I think that's a little bit too little. Not enough there. Dak
9.5. 9.5.
Is it 9.5?
Yeah, it is 9.5.
Oh, 9.5. Okay, either way, 9.5. I do like the over here slightly. Tony Pollard is due for a big season. He's playing for that contract. Whether or not he gets it from the Cowboys, somebody will offer him a contract out there. They still have a nice receiving core, and they still have a decent offensive line. This is all going to depend on how well this Cowboys secondary is going to last and how they're going to handle passing offenses this year, because they did at times struggle. Everyone likes to talk about Trayvon Diggs. He had all those interceptions. Well, he also gave up the most passing yards for an individual cornerback. So you can look at it either way. He either gives up the big play or he makes the big play. And that's kind of how this Cowboys defense is going to live this year, is can they stop the big play when it matters? And we've seen the NFC East be the most inconsistent division over the last 20 years of football, and I think that continues on for one more season. With that being said, I do like the Dallas Cowboys winning this division. This is an over for me.
I'm going to go over as well, and I'll add to what James talked about. You talked about their secondary miscues and issues. They actually, James, if you didn't see in the news, they gave your former first-round pick of a safety, Malik Hooker, a 3-year extension. So they must believe in the fact that that the holes and miscues that Hooker and Diggs had in the secondary must still be filled in their heads, that maybe one day they'll turn it around, maybe. So, but nonetheless, like you said, good on Hooker getting some money from the Cowboys. It's always a good thing with that. Like I said, I'm gonna go over. That offense still has a punch. It has Gallup. It has Prescott. It has Pollard. It still has not Dalton Schultz anymore. That's a loss, but nonetheless, the Cowboys are the Cowboys. The NFC least is the NFC least. We'll see how it goes, but I'm taking the over on that one. All right, guys, let's go to the Giants here, who are trying to get themselves in a better position than they did last season. They won a playoff game over the Minnesota Vikings. They had some contract issues with Saquon Barkley over the offseason, but they paid their left tackle. They paid their quarterback. We'll see who else they do pay. Jacob, 7.5. Where are you going with this?
7.5 is a pretty darn low line. I think Vegas is counting on a couple different things to happen. Let's start with Saquon Barkley. Now, running backs, it's kind of rare for a star running back to have multiple seasons where he's healthy. With Saquon, that's already not the case. He's been injured. He's been banged up. And coming out of Penn State, one of the most talented guys we've ever seen when it comes to prospects at that position. And it just sucks to say that he simply hasn't lived up to the hype he once had. And the injuries have been an issue, and now the contract is playing a factor. Saquon is loved in New York in the locker room. I wonder if his frustration will somehow boil into a team frustration, and if that contract uncertainty will kind of set the tone for the season. That's the first worry. The second worry is Daniel Jones and what it's going to be like if they truly open up the playbook for this guy. You're going to be in some dangerous waters if you're throwing some 15-yard post routes, corners, goes consistently, anything across the middle, all the time with deep safety coverage against legit secondaries with great defensive coordinators, especially in that division going against the Eagles twice a year. things might get tough for Danny Dimes and the New York Giants. 7.5 is really low to me, though. I think they are going to find a way to be mediocre. All in all, though, this division follows a trend of swinging from year to year, and I gotta go slightly under at 7.
James.
This is an interesting team with the whole Saquon situation. Danny Dimes now being Danny Bags after getting paid this offseason. Now is the next question, Jacob, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. They are going to have to open up this playbook a little bit more due to the fact that they paid him so much money, right? And if they didn't pay him so much money, who knows? Maybe they might have had an extra $5 million laying around to give to Saquon, but that's not the case. And this is the life that the Giants and the Giants fans are going to have to live with. Basically, another Eli Manning. Yes, I said it. He's very average. I mean, he's more mobile than Eli Manning. I don't think any of us can argue against that. But as far as decision-making goes and this hoorah about him, they're pretty much the same guy. They're pretty quiet, laid-back guys, and then they can get hyped when they need to. But for the most part, they're pretty much the same quarterback. So I think that's what the Giants went with in fourth and paying him this much money. And I think that playoff win might have had a lot to do with it. Who knows? But 7-10, I do not like. This team went to the playoffs last year. I don't see them dropping 2 or 3 games lower than what they did a year ago. I like the over, but I don't like them hitting double-digit wins. I do like them slightly over. 8-9 for the Giants.
I am going to go under on this one. And my reason is simple. Looking at their schedule, it's going to be tough for them. They got to play Seattle. They got to play Miami. They got to play the Saints. They got to play the Eagles twice, obviously. Yes, they do have some easy, soft opponents on their schedule. The Rams, the Packers, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Commanders. So they have some easy, soft ones. But I'm going under on this one, even though they have some soft games on their schedule. Danny Dimes is not Danny Dimes. He had, a good season. It wasn't stellar. Everyone's giving Brian Dable a pat on the back because they won a bunch of games. They won a playoff game, but they had to go up against Kirk Cousins in the playoffs with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, seriously, a junior varsity team could have beaten the Vikings on how bad they played in that playoff game. Really, the entire story was Saquon Barkley. He carried the team all year, but they're not going to pay him. They're going to pay Danny Dimes because Brian Dable, for some reason, turned Danny Dimes around, but he didn't get anywhere near plus 20. They even have 20 touchdowns on the season. So I don't know what New York is seeing. That's them. I'm not their team, so I am going under. All right, let's go to the Commanders, guys. They have a new ownership this year. They have Matt Johnson involved in the ownership, and that is interesting. Jacob, 6.5. Where are you going with this?
Well, it's hard to buy into faith of a football team when you know that football team is uncertain on what their name is even going to be going forward, much less the questions they have at quarterback. The Commies are going to flat out suck this year. They're going to be pretty bad. 6.5. I'm going to go with the under here. Quarterback is a massive question. Scary Terry, he's kind of in that class of, he's kind of in the D-Hop, DJ Moore club of pretty darn solid receivers in the NFL who are just searching for a quarterback to make them a superstar. Now, the young kid at the end from Ohio State came in with a lot of potential, a lot of hype, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. And when he's been on the field, he's been okay, but he hasn't been that next generation defensive end that maybe some guys thought. And if they ever fill in some gaps in the defense, quarterback, you can't stress that enough. That's what they need to hit on in the draft. They're going to get a good pick next year. Under.
James?
I mean, Sam Howell is leading this team out in week 1. So anytime that happens, you got to go with the under, right? The rest of the division is far better than the Washington Commanders. The defense is there, the defensive line is there, and the defensive line is probably a top 5 unit in the NFL. They got 4 guys that are just absolutely crazy, and they're probably going to end up losing Chase Young. That probably will be the one guy that they are not going to pay since they already declined his 5th-year option. So that looks like that they're going to kind of just let him do his thing this season, and if he does well, then just have him walk. It's just been kind of one of those relationships, and I don't think either side is going to be quite shocked if Chase Young decides to leave. So, but with that being said, the running back position is a very questionable group of running backs as well. I like the under here. I don't see too much going for them. I do know that the fans are all thrilled to have this new ownership, and I think that's kind of what more talk of this team will go towards this season is more fact that there's a new owner, and that's going to be more important than winning games. So they're not there yet, especially with Sam Howell being there. He's the worst quarterback in the division. This is an easy under.
So you guys brought up Chase Young, and I think that's a good starting point with the fact is I don't know what happened to Chase. I don't know whether it is Washington. I don't know whether it is the injuries. I don't know whether it's his own, belief that he is that freaking good. Because this dude should be 19, 20 sacks every single year. And in 3 seasons, he's only got 10 total sacks as an entire player. So I don't know what's going on with him. That's a question for Washington. I mean, it's kind of boggling my mind. If I had a wish, and this goes to James, if you want to push off Taylor and punish him for asking a trade and make all this thing go away, trade him to Washington for Terry McLaurin and give Anthony Richardson a true lethal person that can carry him and help him in his progress. I mean, just make the trade at this point because I am sick of watching Terry McLaurin be wasted on the Washington Commanders roster for no reason whatsoever because this kid is good. He can play on the outside, play on the inside, play as a slot, play in the screen game, play in whatever way that the Washington Commanders need him to play. And it's just ridiculous how bad this team is. I'm going under. They'll be one of the worst teams in the NFC. They're not going to be that good at all. I love Ron Rivera. I know it's not totally his fault. Ron Rivera will get you to a 500 record, but I don't believe that this is going to happen. They don't have a good offense. They don't have a good defense. They're all over the place. All right, boys, that is the NFC East. Let us go to the NFC West. And one of the teams that finished at the top of the NFC West was the San Francisco 49ers. Questions at quarterback. They're all on defense. They're still on offense. They still have their coach, GM, owner, blah, blah, blah. Jacob, 10.5. Can this team get back to the NFC Championship game, and can they get back to the Super Bowl?
It almost doesn't even matter who's at quarterback. Now, I'm not trying to take away the success that Brock Purdy has had so far in his youthful NFL career. But when you're talking about legitimately still having a championship squad, hardly anybody in the media saying anything about the 49ers not being in a contention for a Super Bowl this year. They're almost a guaranteed selection for the NFC Championship game. Now, I know every year things turn out differently than we expect, but I feel like the NFL is starting to tweak a little bit to where things are getting more predictable when you have the amount of talent that a team like the San Francisco 49ers has on their squad. This is a great team. This is a team that's going to win a lot of games this year. Trent Williams, he has a case even to be the best player in all of football. That's how good he is at his position up there with the big boys on the O-line. Deebo Samuel, I absolutely love this guy. His highlight tape is insane. He brings the contact more than any other receiver in the NFL. And then Christian McCaffrey. Guys, I'm a Panthers fan. I know all about CMC. I know what he can do. When he's healthy, He's up there for the best running backs in the league. And the defense is what it is. Everybody knows the defense is a perennial top 5, 10 defense in the league. Over 10.5, 11.5, I almost don't care what it is. It's over for the Niners.
Sorry, go ahead, James.
Yep, I'm with Jacob on this one. I think this is an easy over. They have the best roster in the NFC. They have more guys than the Eagles. Yes, I did say that. They have more individual guys than the Philadelphia Eagles. They have maybe, arguably, you can make your case for Pete Carroll, the best coach in the division. Sean McVay, I think, has stepped back maybe a step or two, not too far behind. They have the what do you call it? Most electrifying offense in that division. I don't think that's in question. Neither the defense being the best in the division. They don't have the best quarterback in the division, which is usually what I like to go towards in favoring better teams in the division. But, Jacob, it doesn't matter, like you said. It's the last pick of the draft we're talking about, and this guy pulled off, 7, 8 wins to end the season in a row. It doesn't matter. I like the Niners over here easily.
So I think I'm going to be the only one to go under on this one. And my case for this is simply put, is Brock Purdy. I don't know about his health. I don't even know if he's practiced yet. I honestly don't know if he's practiced at all. Since still recovering from his surgery that he had this offseason. I mean, if let's ask ourselves this. How good will the 49ers be if they have to go 4 or 5 weeks without Brock Purdy? I mean, Jacob, you were a Panthers fan. You already know Sam Darnold, no matter what, is not going to get the job done. Sam Darnold is maybe good for 2 touchdowns a game,
But Mark, you
barely.
know what I can say about Sam Darnold? Is that he actually had a decent start to the season. That's what I
Nonetheless,
actually can say.
hey, he's still Sam Darnold. It doesn't change anything whatsoever with Sam Darnold. I don't trust him. I understand this entire offense is lethal. I understand this entire defense is lethal. I know Mike Shanahan is coming up with a plan on how to make Sam Darnold look decent enough to survive a good amount of time. But I'm gonna go under. I don't think they'll have the right. I just don't think they'll be that good once Brock comes back. And I mean, yeah, we saw what Brock did in the weeks that he had, but when teams actually have enough tape and film on him and come up with different schemes, is he going to take that next step to stay as the calm, collective quarterback he was? I'm going under on this one, and if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong again. And I'll accept it. All right, guys, let's move on to the second place team, the Seattle Seahawks. They went into the draft. They got JSN from Ohio State. They already have DK Metcalf. They already have Tyler Lockett. They have Kenneth Walker, who is hurt, but he might come back later in the season. They have Geno Smith, who was a comeback player of the year. Jacob, 8.5. Where are you going?
The Seattle Seahawks, 8.5. Even listed at 9 for some of these. So this is as close as you're going to get to, a 500 team when it comes down to the predictions. The Seahawks this season, I have a feeling that they will be one of those teams that the rest of the league kind of catches up to their surprise in 2022. I think they caught a lot of teams off guard. I think Geno Smith kind of came out of nowhere, and I just have that feeling that he's going to kind of regress back to what he was. Not fall off a cliff, not just instantly get benched. But I'm saying I think it might get exposed that there was a reason why Geno Smith was a backup for all those years. You can look around this division and say, they might get a couple free wins. The Cardinals, they could snag 2 potentially. The Rams, if Matthew Stafford's hurt, if Cooper Kupp's hurt, if Aaron Donald's hurt, there's another 2 wins you could snag right there. But to say that they repeat their success and go 9-8 again, I don't think it'll happen. I'm going to lean with the under.
James, go ahead.
I'm right there with you, Jacob. This team won too many games that they probably shouldn't have won last year. And maybe they were on the lucky side of the ball that time. But to replicate that 2 years in a row is very, very difficult. I do like the slight under here as well. It was a nice story for Geno Smith. And I bet you the fans of Seattle were, more than happy to get this out of Geno after losing their potential Hall of Famer and Russell Wilson. But Pete Carroll's towards the end of his career, and I will say this. If the Seattle Seahawks lose double-digit games this year, if they go 7-10, I think Pete Carroll walks away from football. But I don't think they'll go 7-10. I think they'll go 8-9. So I'm going with the under here.
Well, considering I took the 49ers under, and I'm not taking the Rams or the Cardinals to win this division, this is my division winner. I'm picking the over on this one, and I think you guys are downgrading this offense in the sense that Geno won't prosper at all. Let's ask this question. I'm seriously asking this question. When was the last time Geno Smith had this much talent on the offensive side of the ball? He has the rookie JSN, who's been lighting up the training camp all summer. He's got Tyler Lockett, who's been in 2 Super Bowls and is reliable. He's got DK Metcalf, which is legitimately, he might be one of the aliens that the U.S. government was talking about because he's absurd as a human athlete. When Kenneth Walker is healthy, Kenneth Walker is a 1,000-yard running back. He's got a solid offensive line in front of him. Yes, the defense has got his questions, but I don't think Geno Smith has been around this much talent since he was in college at West Virginia. And that's saying something considering that was almost 10, 11 years ago. So I'm picking the over on this one. I think if this offense clicks on every cylinder that it should, I think this team is a 10-win team. I think this team can show up and just keep up with some teams. I mean, they kind of were that lackluster team towards the end of the season that couldn't put up 2 touchdowns. I think that's completely fixed. I think they'll be a team that puts up 3 to 4 touchdowns a game. I think they're that much better. Sorry about that. All right, guys, let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams. They had a bunch of issues last year and could not get out of their own way sometimes. And we'll wonder if they'll actually do that this year. Will Sean McVay retire after the season, take the Amazon contract? Who knows? Jacob, 6.5 for the Super Bowl champs 2 years ago. Where do you see this team going?
This would be a very nervous bet, but I would take the over 6.5 for the Rams. I think there's some magic still there. I just think there's a little bit of pixie dust still left over from that glorious run that they had not too long ago. Cooper Kupp, the best single season ever from a wide receiver. Aaron Donald on an all-time tear as well. But there are some concerns about this team. It's pretty much all the gaps, all the holes between the stars. Sean McVay will probably be there as long as he wants to, unless they have a couple of losing seasons after this in a row. But Matthew Stafford, you could say he once again has a little bit of pressure on his shoulders, even after the Super Bowl win. Not enough pressure to change his legacy, or if he has much of a legacy to say for. But I think they're going to go over. I think, you can pencil in 2 wins against the Cardinals. I think you can pencil in a couple other victories just off Cooper Kupp, giving you great performances here and there. And then I feel like they'll squeeze in some. They'll find a way. They'll find a way. To say this is going to be a 6-win team is, ouch, there's too much talent there for me to say that. Slightly over.
James?
I think the biggest concern in this offseason, the Rams asked Matthew Stafford to reconstruct his contract, and he said no. I love that. You guys traded for him. You went all out for him, and he delivered for you guys, and now you're asking him to take less money. And he's being stubborn about it, and I love it. He brought you guys a Super Bowl. So I think that's going to be somewhat of an ongoing issue between maybe the front office and Matthew Stafford. Because we all know how that goes when a player, says, no, I don't want to reconstruct my contract. I'm good on that, especially at the quarterback position. And not only that, but I believe last week Cooper Kupp had a hamstring injury as well. He should be good to go by the season starts, but that's going to be an ongoing issue all season long unless he gets it completely taken care of. But how often do we hear guys that have a hamstring problem immediately getting taken care of? Almost never. And I don't think Cooper Kupp is going to do it this season as far as getting back to 100%. He's going to have that constantly bothering him. So we may not see it, on paper, but we'll see the eye test that, he's not running as crisp as he was last year. He's not, he's just not as electric. And that could be a problem coming up season. So with no running game to speak of, losing Jalen Ramsey, it almost seems like this team really did put in all their chips in for 2021. And they absolutely did. And now they're just dealing with the consequences of all this. So I'm going to go with the Rams under.
I'm going to join you on that one, James. And the truth is, it's not a lie. Their team is completely a shell shock of what it was when that went to the Super Bowl. They're just not the same team. They don't have Odell Beckham Jr. They don't have Jalen Ramsey. They only have Aaron Donald left on the defense. I mean, listen, there's a great story coming out of a Rams camp. Jacob, your high school buddy, Puka Nacua, has been picking up, first string reps with Cooper Kupp injured. They're saying he's really good. They really like the kid. He's got a bright future, which I'm happy for him, man. If you know what, I experienced that myself. I had a couple of ex-teammates go to the NFL for, just, training camps and a short time on the practice squads. But nonetheless, when you get old teammates into the NFL, that's pretty dang cool to say. So I'm still hitting the under on this one. I feel bad for Matt Stafford. He went from the highest of highs of winning the Super Bowl to going back to basically being with the Detroit Lions and a terrible roster and being told you got to make something out of nothing. And I feel bad for him. If he retired at the end of the season, I wouldn't blame him. If Sean McVay stepped away, I wouldn't blame him. If Aaron Donald bought himself out of that contract, I wouldn't blame him either. The Rams are done. Blow it up, implode it, wherever you got to go. They are the worst team. They're one of the worst teams. They'll be one of the worst teams this year. All right, boys. This may shock you guys, and I had to fact check this, and I did a decent amount of actual fact checking. You guys want to know who the oldest team in the NFL is, just by chance? Can any of you guys guess?
Probably the Rams.
Jacob?
Rams.
It is the Arizona Cardinals. They are the oldest, and I am legitimately serious. They are the oldest NFL football team that everybody. And yes, that's before the Packers and the Bears. The Arizona Cardinals are the oldest team in the NFL.
Boys, you're talking about franchise old. Okay.
Yes. My bad. Yes, franchise old.
I thought you were talking about roster age. Okay.
No. But franchise old, they are the oldest team in the NFL, and I'm not kidding you about that one. Go fact check that. It's absurd. But nonetheless, where I was going with that is the oldest team in the NFL has some of the lowest odds this year in the NFL. Jacob, 4.5. Where are you going with this?
Let's just say that little spice of historical information should be the majority of our segment on the Cardinals, as that's how much they're going to suck this year. Under.
James?
No Kyler Murray.
Yes, he is. He was taking snaps.
Offensive line. No coach, really. Under.
I agree. I feel bad for Gannon. He left Philadelphia to go to Arizona to take this job. They have nobody. Kyler Murray should have thought about going to play baseball, but then again, he would have played for the A's, so he would have had to he wouldn't have had anything go right for him in either direction. So I'm going under on this one. All right, guys, let's go to the NFC South. Let's start with the team that's projected to be the division winners this year, the favorites this year. It's the Saints, and they added a new quarterback in the offseason. Jacob, you know this division very well. 9.5. Do you believe the New Orleans Saints can do it?
No, I do not believe the New Orleans Saints will win 10 games. That seems crazy to say. This is a team that has some talent across the board. I think guys who are kind of getting up there, Kamara, are a little overrated. Derek Carr, at one point in time, I was pretty high on this guy. Now, not so much. We've seen him with two guys who were top 10 in their position groups last year. Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams. I mean, they even had Darren Waller for, bits and pieces of that season. And you still couldn't really get anything done. So I'm not as high on Derek Carr as I was a couple of years ago. I think the Saints are going to be under. I'm expecting this to be the worst division in football. And 8 or 9 games will win this division. But I don't think it's going to be the Saints. Under.
James.
The Saints have been one of those teams that have kind of teeter-totted ever since Drew Brees left. And now they got someone who is a little bit proven, right? Not all the way proven. Derek Carr still has some questions about him, but he's better than what they've had. He's better than Jameis Winston, So the defense is still there. They have a really, really, really nice receiving core. They're very deep at the running back position. And you know how the saying is, guys, whenever a guy gets in a really, really ugly breakup and he goes and finds something new, he thrives better than ever. And that's what Derek Carr is going to do in New Orleans. It was an ugly breakup between him and the Raiders. All those tweets, his wife crying, making his family upset. So I think he's going to be out there playing on a different level this season. And I think that this is going to be the jump that we're all kind of waiting to see from Derek Carr. In this division, with those quarterbacks that he has to go up against, that could be an easy 6 wins for them. I like the over here. I love it.
I do too. I'm going with the over on this one. And I keep harping back on the schedules as one of my talking points. But the schedule says a lot because who you go up against says how much prep time and effort you got to put into. They got to play the Panthers twice. No offense, Jacob. I'm not trying to dog on them totally. They got to go up against the Packers. They got to go up against the Buccaneers twice. They got to go up against the Patriots, the Texans, the Colts, the Vikings. They got to go up against the Rams. They got to go up against the Giants. I mean, seriously, there's a good amount of games here that if Derek Carr just doesn't do any boneheaded plays or get himself into trouble, they'll walk away with wins. I mean, not only is the offense something that you brought up, James, this is probably by default the best defense Derek Carr has probably had in his entire career. And that's going back to when they won the division with Khalil Mack before Derek Carr got hurt 2 games before the end of the season. That was his best defense when he was with the Raiders. That defense in New Orleans is not comparable to that division-winning defense, but it's not the bad defenses that Derek Carr has had to deal with for the last 3 or 4 seasons with Oakland and Las Vegas. I'm taking the over on this one. Their offense is good. Whether Michael Thomas throws a fit or not, he'll be good for some games. Chris Olave is electric. Alvin Kamara is crazy. They were talking to Kareem Hunt today. They got Jamal Williams. This team is loaded. This team is good. I'm taking them on the over. All right, let's talk about the Falcons, boys. They are a potential team that could be on the rise or could be on the fall. Who knows? They are at 8.5. Jacob, take it away.
I feel like the Falcons being at 8.5 is almost laughable. Like, I don't know what they've done to deserve this prop. Desmond Ritter's their quarterback. They were 7-10 last year. And that was in a bad division with plenty of opportunities to beat up on some teams that, might improve. I think the Panthers are going to improve. I think the Saints might improve. The Falcons, everybody's hyped about their running back. I mean, think big picture right now with what's actually going on with running backs, and then compare that to the Falcons and say their best player is expected to be a running back. Look across the league. What team with their best player as a running back is projected to win 9 games? I mean, nobody's better than that, and you really don't see that. I don't understand why the Falcons are this high. I think they're maybe planning on them getting some free wins from the Panthers or the Bucs or the Saints even. It could be a messy division. All in all, 9 wins is not realistic in my head. I think they're going to be under, I'll say 7-10.
James?
I think I might be the only one here that's not buying this Bijan Robinson hype. I understand he's good, and I understand this Falcons rushing offense was very good last year with subpar guys. And Tyler Algier, say what you want about him, he's not him yet, and he never will be now because of Bijan. But with that being said, there's no receivers to throw to. This is Desmond Ridder we're talking about. A non-Power 5 Cincinnati team to the playoff, right? And now they are, whatever, but not when he was there. Are we really expecting this guy who played half a season last year behind Marcus Mariota, who by no means I don't think was any better than Ridder was last season? This is an easy under for me. I don't think this team knows what their identity is, and I just don't see enough on paper for me to scratch them 8 or 9 wins. This is an under for me.
I'm taking the under as well. This division is a mess. I think this will be in consideration for one of the worst divisions in the NFL this year. It's just too many question marks with a lot of teams in this division. You mentioned they have no offense. I mean, on paper, Algier, Robinson, Pitts, I forget the wide receiver. His name will come to me maybe. But yeah, I agree. And plus, that defense is not good. They had a subpar rushing defense last year. I mean, they just weren't that good at all. I will take the under on this one as well. It's just not going to look good for them in any way. All right, guys, let's move on to the last team in this division. And of course, we'll start with James first, and then we'll go to me, and then we'll leave this one for Jacob, like we always do with all the teams.
You forgot the
James,
Bucs.
James, 7.5 for the Panthers. Over under. Where are you going?
I think we're doing Tampa, and then we're going to go to Carolina.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah. All right, let's go to Tampa.
6.5 for Tampa.
Yeah, James, 6.5.
I'm starting on this one, Martin.
Yeah, let him go.
Tampa, 6.5. Guys, there's a real heavily contested quarterback battle going down there in southern Florida. And it could really shake up the NFL landscape. It could really shake it up so much so that it could decide who is the Curtis Painter of next year's team, who will lead Tampa Bay to the number 1 overall pick to select Caleb Williams out of USC. Under.
James.
Well, they just lost everyone's Lord and Savior, the Golden Boy, Tom Brady, the boogeyman. So glad he's gone out of my life, out of my sight. Never have to hear that dude's name related to football play ever again. They have the worst rushing offense in the league, and they didn't do anything to make that any better. They still have Mike Evans and Godwin, and that'll be whatever, nice for whoever decides to be out there for quarterback, whether it's Trask or Baker Mayfield. This team doesn't have much else. I mean, they still got the nice linebacking core in Devin White. But other than that, there's not much going for them. This could be in contention with.
They deserve better than this. You mentioned Devin White, Wilson. Some of those guys just don't deserve this after the Super Bowl run, but they're in the same boat like the Rams. They went all in. Now they're paying for the consequences. We'll go under. All right, let's move on to the Panthers. I already said their number. James, go.
7.5. Let's see. They added Frank Reich. They had the number 1 pick in the draft. They brought in Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen. You'd think just by default they would win more games than they did a year ago, right? That's not always the case with rookie quarterbacks and new coaches that pair up together right away, and we've seen that in the past. the Panthers just always find ways to lose games that they should win. And I know Jacob's going to go more and elaborate into that. And the defense is there, and they're definitely the best part of this team. They went kind of under the radar last year because their offense was so subpar post CMC. So with that being said, this isn't the worst team in the division, and it's not. And I don't even know if it's the second worst team in the division. But it won't surprise me one bit if I do see this team come week 15, week 16, and we see them tied up there with the New Orleans Saints. And those final 3 weeks are really going to determine, is this team ready now or are they just a year away? With that being said, 7.5, I'm leaning slightly over here.
I'm going under. Defensively, they're all right. Offensively, they'll be okay. They're nothing special. I'm going under on this one. Jacob, take it away.
Well, we just got the best quarterback in the draft. We added Hayden Hurst, solid tight end. We had a DJ Chark. When he is able to stay healthy, he's an all right receiver. We've filled out the offensive side of the football. James, you touched on something. You said post CMC the offense was bad. James, the offense was bad the entire season. We were the only team in the last couple of seasons to throw over those years combined more interceptions than passing touchdowns. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold was our quarterback situation last year. You add now Bryce Young, who maybe late in the season he can start to really develop into something. The reaction around training camp is that the team has good chemistry with him. You know, sometimes a new quarterback comes in and he's young, he's immature. You know, it takes him a couple seasons to really figure things out and become the leader of the team, and Bryce Young's kind of became the leader of the team immediately. This team has some stars on the defensive side of the football, and I like their potential. I do. I think they rush the passer well. I think they guard on the back end well. Brian Burns was potentially going to go for 2 first-round picks, and the Panthers turned that down. We have Jeremy Chin at safety. We have Shaq Thompson at linebacker. We have Derek Brown up front. Aquanu at left tackle. He's certainly going to improve this year for us after his rookie year last year. I think this is a team that's on the come up. And I like the future of the Carolina Panthers. They had 2 games last year that were super close. The one against the Saints, the DJ Moore missed extra point thing, and the game against the Buccaneers and Tom Brady that could have swung either way. The Panthers could have won 9 games last year. I love their trade. They moved up. They got rid of DJ Moore, who is a solid receiver. I like him. But he's not enough, in my opinion, to sway the betting odds very much. I like the Panthers going over 7.5.
All right, boys, let's move on to the last division, I would like to call it the most prestigious division, but then again, I'm biased on that one, and I can accept that. Y'all can hate me on that for as much as you want. Anyway, let's talk about the division winner to start with. The Minnesota Vikings, 8.5.
A lot of people are expecting this team to fall off significantly from their stellar regular season last year. I don't think quite so. You have Justin Jefferson, a guy who's going to be selected first in very many fantasy leagues coming up this year. Kirk Cousins, maybe because it's the quarterback docuseries. But he's likable, man. He puts in the work. And people their expectations for what a above average quarterback are kind of aren't realistic. And that's what Kirk Cousins actually is. He's an above average quarterback. With an above average quarterback with one of the best skilled positions in the NFL and a defense that can hold on and I think they're going to have plenty of opportunities to make some plays against some of their division counterparts. The Vikings are going over 8.5.
James.
This might be one of the biggest differences in wins from season to season. And I'm not talking up, I'm talking down. They just lost Dalvin Cook. They traded away Eric Kendricks. They got rid of Adam Thielen. I mean, they got rid of a bunch of pieces, right? And it almost seems like the Vikings, their window's now closed. They had their window the last 2 seasons, and now it kind of seems like that window's shut pretty tight. They made a nice draft move in drafting Jordan Addison to kind of replace Adam Thielen a little bit. Maybe not the same kind of receiver, but the skill set is still there. The defense was on the good side of these one-score games this year, and that's why they did win 13 games, whereas the year before that, they were on the bad side of one-score games. So the Vikings, every single season, it just seems like they are in every single game, and that may be due because of Kirk Cousins. Because if you don't have him back there, this team isn't winning 5 games. Let's be honest. Kirk does bring a different value to this team that it goes unnoticed, I think, a little bit. But maybe this Netflix quarterback thing kind of opens that up to some more people. And maybe he does start to get a little bit more credit here for the next season or two, because he has been been rated as underrated for majority of the league. With that being said, it is 8.5 with the Packers really dropping. I'm gonna lean towards the under. I just think they lost too much, and I don't think that they found enough to replace that to make an immediate impact. I like the under 8-9.
I like the under as well. And Jacob, you brought up that point of Kirk Cousins gets too much heat. I mean, the documentary shows that maybe he's more of a likable guy, blah, blah, blah. I am on the opposite side of that. And the only opposite reason I'm on the opposite side of that is if you're the very first quarterback to get a fully guaranteed contract and you don't even have 2 playoff wins under your belt, when a journeyman quarterback can come in and take the Minnesota Vikings to an NFC championship game and you can't even get them out of the wild card situation, who gave him the money. And yes, I know Kirk Cousins just signed the contract, because if a team's going to offer you that much money, I mean, are you really going to say no? So I totally get that point. But still, the target on his back is how much money he has made and how much little success he has had beyond the regular season in Minnesota. And it continues to show that Kirk Cousins is the reason why the Minnesota Vikings are being held back. They lost Dalvin Cook because of his salary cap issues. They probably won't pay Justin Jefferson the money he deserves. It's probably why they drafted Jordan Addison. So I'm taking the under. I agree 8 wins should be a right number. Kirk Cousins does deserve all the flack that he gets, because if you're going to make that much money, you better have a good resume. And he's on to the Lions here. They came up just short of a wild card spot last year. Jacob, 9.5 wins for the Lions. Is this the year they'll finally win the division?
I think that the Lions and the Vikings will both finish with 10 wins. I think they will both, have a tiebreaker split the title. They could be close. Who that tiebreaker will go to, I don't know yet. But I think the Lions will go over slightly. I don't think this is a team that's going to be getting a bye or anything like that. But I think they will get some wins across their division. That's kind of a trend in a lot of my regular season win total over under predictions. Is I think they'll have a solid shot to sweep the Bears. I think they'll have a solid shot to sweep the Packers, and they might split with the Vikings. And so you can look at that. That's 4 or 5 wins right there. You look across the rest of their schedule. I think they can pick up the wins necessary to get to 10 wins. They finished the season really strong last year. Made a great push. Dan Campbell really has a great buy-in from a lot of his guys. He's a guy who, was a former player and kind of has the personality that you would want in a former player to be your head coach. And a lot of guys really look up to that. Jared Goff has kind of had a resurgence. We've kind of gone back and forth in the past. I know we have guys on who's better, Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. Now, I would slightly lean Kirk Cousins still, but that's not. They're probably still in the same tier overall. But I think the Lions are going to be in contention to win 10 games. It seems like their running game is fluid almost no matter who is back there at RB. So I think they'll win 10.
James?
This is my favorite one. In our lifetimes, in all of our lifetimes, we have seen the Lions win 10 games once, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And we've never seen them. Was it twice?
Twice. They won 11 games in 2011, then they won 10 games in 2013.
Oh, I forgot about 13. But anyway, we haven't seen it much, and we haven't seen them win a division. This is the best time for them to win the division. The boogeyman of the North, the king of the North, is finally gone. So who's going to be the one to take the throne? And I think the Lions are in perfect position. They ended the season on a 7-game winning streak. And Dan Campbell does have that locker room. We always talk about these rebuilding teams, and the first thing that they need to do is set the culture. And that's what Dan Campbell did. Hard Knocks did an incredible job in covering that for us. So we know exactly how Dan Campbell was running this team, and the players loved it. And a coach's player is basically Dan Campbell, and players love to play for that guy. So I think this momentum carries through. I think that they're the only team that significantly improved from last season. They added Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is going to be very, very sneaky for a team that likes to throw the ball a lot. I like the over here, and I like the Lions winning the division.
Solid, bold picks. I am agreeing with it. I'm going over as well. Being that I am from Chicago, but I got a ton of family in Michigan. My grandfather of 84 years has been a fan of them ever since he was born. Hell, he remembers the 57 NFL championship team. He can name you half the damn roster, and that is still crazy to me. That's something that I've never thought that he would be able to do. Nonetheless, he has been a fan of this team forever. He obviously remembers the last time they won the division in 93. So, 29 years is a long time. 30 years is a long time to go without a division title. This is the year that could happen. I'm taking the over. 10 wins, I think, is a good number for them. I still have questions about Jared Goff. I know he's got a St. Brown, but their top flight true receiver, Jameson Williams, is suspended for 6 games. Yes, they have David Montgomery. Yes, they have Jahmyr Gibbs, who they drafted. Yes, they have DeAndre. They have I forget the running back they got from Philadelphia, but nonetheless, the point is they have players. They are a little bit more solid on the offense. I still have questions about their defense, but then again, Dan Campbell, he's got a system, he's got ideas. We'll see what he does in that process. So, all right, let's move on to the team that everybody wanted to talk about last offseason, because why not? Because it's Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, because they don't have anything up there in Green Bay to talk about, but besides the Green Bay Packers. Jacob, 7.5. Where are you going with this?
I think there's going to be a disappointment with a lot of Packers fans when we actually think about what the expectations are for Jordan Love. Jordan Love, even with the time off he's had as the backup, you could almost argue that fans' expectations in that area of the United States, who are super loyal to the Pack, have the expectations that Jordan Love is going to do what Aaron Rodgers did behind Brett Favre. And, I mean, that's straight out of a movie, right? But for that to happen again with all the things that we've heard over the years about the Packers organization and their incompetence. Now, they find ways to bust out winning seasons one after another, but that's been on the shoulders of an all-time top 10, top 12 quarterback of all time. You could argue that in this situation, becoming the QB1 for Green Bay is more pressure, far more pressure, than Bryce Young has drafted number 1 overall for the Panthers. That pressure is something Jordan Love cannot live up to. I don't think there was the same reports positive that we saw about Aaron Rodgers coming about Jordan Love as consistently. There's going to be a rebuilding year for Green Bay under.
James.
So basically, Vegas is telling us that this team could win the same amount of games this year as they did last year, minus Aaron Rodgers. Based on that alone, I'm taking the under. There's absolutely no way this team wins the same amount of games without that guy behind there. I mean, I can't find any logical explanation. Sure, they still got the running back duo, and Aaron Jones, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, the power back guy. But their receivers are young.
Austin Dillon.
A.J. Dillon. Yes, thank you.
A.J. Dillon.
The receivers are, they got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, but, other than that, it's kind of thin. The tight end position's kind of thin as well. Are we really going to be expecting Jordan Love? And he should by now, because he's been with this team for 4 seasons. Should he have the entire playbook opened up to him? And I'm why not? Why would you even hold this guy back for 1 second? He's been with you guys for 3-4 seasons. Let him loose. Let him do his thing. And if it doesn't work, how much hate or how much heat do you think the Packers organization is really going to take? Because, well, now this is a wasted draft pick. You guys drafted the wrong guy. We could have still had Aaron. This could get really ugly really fast for Green Bay if wins don't start getting produced. And they're not going to get produced in week or in year 1. So, based on that alone, I'm taking the under.
So, obviously, I'm a Bears fan. We're going to get to the Bears here in a second, but I'm active on Twitter and never won't ever not be on Twitter. And, of course, I've got into some battles with Packer fans because I like pissing them off. So one thing that they've been consistent on with arguing with me is that the 2 games that we have seen Jordan Love play, the Eagles game where he came in and he finished garbage time, and the game against Kansas City Chiefs where he actually started. He lost the game against Kansas City Chiefs, and he almost brought the Packers back slightly against the Eagles. So he did good against a defense that got all the way to the Super Bowl, but lost to a defense that gives up more passing yards, more rushing numbers, and sometimes gives Patrick Mahomes so many damn headaches on the inconsistency they have. So where do you go with that? He's considered 0-1 in his record, but they don't count the loss to the Eagles. So you can go in 2 different directions. Is Jordan Love the guy? No, it's simple. This is an under. The Packers are going to finish dead last in this division. It'll be the first time they finished dead last since 2005. 18 years they were consistent on not finishing dead last. I'll give them credit for that. But the Packers are the worst team in this division. It's not even close. Some of those defensive players I feel bad for. But then again, it's cheeseheads. They live in the bottom part of Canada. I mean, let them live in their 40 feet of snow. Doesn't bother me at all in that one. All right, guys, let's talk about the Chicago Bears, my favorite team. But, of course, we all know where this is going. Jacob, take it away.
The Chicago Bears are a team that has really been popular this offseason. I've seen them posted quite a bit on social media. I don't know. I don't remember who it was who came out and said we should be, why can't we be in the discussion for a Super Bowl? Who in the Bears organization said that? But, quite a statement, but it's a classic statement from a team that is just trying to get something going. Justin Fields is what he is. Martin, I've told you a couple times now that he has a worse career record than Jamarcus Russell, who is considered maybe the biggest bust at quarterback in NFL history. He was 7-18. Fields is 5-20. Now, I will the defense for Fields is that the defense was by far the worst team, the worst defense in the league last year. It just was. I mean, yardage really says it, especially defending the pass. Martin, when we talk about quarterbacks who are really good on the feet, and we think about how they've done in recent years, other than the spectacular season from Cam Newton getting to the Super Bowl, other than the one great season from Mike Vick getting to the Super Bowl, or he had some good seasons in there, but as far as the deep postseason run, it's kind of been a consistent thing with these running quarterbacks who don't have that next level of arm, kind of having a cap on their success. And I don't think Justin Fields is even in the tier with Mike Vick and Cam Newton and even Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's proven that yet. I think this team has quite some strides to go. We forget that because they traded the number 1 overall pick, that they weren't the worst team in football last year. Because of that, I can't see them having, a 4 or 5 win boost from season to season. I'm going to go with the under.
James?
I'm going to go with you on this one, Jacob, on the under. I just don't see anything, really. DJ Moore's nice, but we've already seen DJ Moore in the last couple of years in Carolina play with subpar quarterback play, and now he's going to another place where there's subpar quarterback play. So it made headlines, but it didn't make all that too much sense. There still was a guy on the board that they could have taken that I think would have made an immediate impact on their defense in Will Anderson, but won't touch on that too much. The offense was in shambles last year at times. Whenever Justin Fields couldn't find someone down the field, he just had to rely on his legs. And that's fine when you have that ability. But how long is this going to be going on for before, ultimately we see him get hurt? And I'm not wishing that upon him, but it's something that we see with these mobile quarterbacks. Lamar, you mentioned it. He's gotten injured. Cam, he's gotten injured. I mean, Josh Allen's kind of a running quarterback. We haven't seen him really get injured. We've seen him kind of get these little nagging bugs here and there, but nothing too serious. My point is these running quarterbacks, they're frail, and they're going to break eventually. And if the Bears lose Justin Fields, you can just scratch them off as an L every single week. He's the only reason why they're even in games, first off, because of his dual threat ability. But this division where you're looking up to the Lions, and you might actually split with the Packers this season because of how unorganized I think they will be. And they can split this with the Vikings. So I don't think they'll be 4 or 5 games below the rest of the division. But can I see them finishing second? Absolutely. I can see them finishing second. But the ceiling is there. I don't see them winning this division. I'm going to lean towards the under. All right, Martin. Take it away.
So 2 unders, huh? And of course, Jacob's under is that they'll finish with 1 or 2 wins, which that's just pathetic. They won't be that bad. James, your logic is solid. I can see where you're going with all of that. You're absolutely right. They've only been in games because of Justin Fields. Obviously, that was incredibly obvious towards the end of the season when they decided to finish Justin Fields for the season, and the last 2 games were finished by the backups. They didn't get a chance to play in the last 2 games. You guys mentioned that they were the worst team in the NFL. That's not true. The Texans were the worst team in the NFL, but thank you, Davis Mills. Thank you, Lovie Smith, for completely betraying the Houston Texans. Thank you for beating the Indianapolis Colts to give me the first overall pick so that I can have DJ Moore and have the players that I want, which makes me happy. Yes, they signed Yannick Ngakoue this offseason. James, you know him as well as anybody. He had a decent season last year for the Colts. He was a boost on the edge, and he'll be a boost for the Bears as well. It's only a 1-year contract. Everybody knows Yannick Ngakoue is a great player, but his rush defense is the reason why he's bouncing around teams. He's just another bigger, faster version of Jadeveon Clowney. So to the offense, They got better. DJ Moore is great for Justin Fields. Justin Fields will be stellar. And you guys want to mention all the running? Sure, that's fine. Mention all the running. But Justin Fields isn't running because Justin Fields is a great runner. Justin Fields is running because out of necessity. In 2 seasons, when you have 140 pressures, you've been sacked more than 60 times in 2 seasons. Your offensive line can't block anybody. Your center gets blown up every play as soon as he snaps the ball. Your best offensive lineman's been out with injuries the last 2 seasons. You've been trying to bounce around rookies all over the offensive line to protect Justin Fields, and that hasn't worked out completely. I completely agree with that. But you guys are just wrong about the Bears. The Bears will be over. The 7.5 number is a solid number to take the over. They will be the division winners in this one. They are the better team in this entire division. It's simply put, it just doesn't make any sense on why people dog on Justin Fields, but only reason why because he's apparently another bust from Ohio State, but yet he's not totally a bust. Yes, you can bring up the records about Jamarcus Russell, but Jamarcus Russell ate his way out of the NFL. Justin Fields is not 290 pounds walking into training camp as a starting quarterback, okay? Justin Fields is that dude. Justin Fields is him, okay? This is the turnaround season for the Bears. He'll throw for more than 4,000 yards. They'll have a solid running game. They'll have a solid defense this year. They fixed up a lot of their issues. And wherever they play after this, I don't care if it's in Aurora, I don't care if it's in Arlington Park, I don't care where it is in Illinois. That doesn't matter to me. The Bears will be the division winners. They'll have 11 wins this year. Like I said before to you guys all offseason, Justin Fields will be in the top 5 in MVP voting. He is just that good, okay? When you have to run out of necessity versus actually running because you want to, there's a difference. He's not running because he wants to. He's not running like Lamar Jackson or Cam Newton, who decided to run on their own. He's running out of necessity because he doesn't want to freaking get sacked. Okay, it was the same thing with Andrew Luck. Okay, Andrew Luck didn't run because he wanted to run. He ran because his guards and his center were ass. Okay, and he had no one in front of him to protect him, so he had to make something out of nothing. Okay, and so forth. Justin Fields will be okay. The Bears will be okay. We're going to win this division, and I'm going to be happy at the end of the season. 11 wins for the Bears.
Good podcast. This is going to, do it for the NFL regular season over-unders. AFC, NFC in the books. I think we'll do the same with the National Basketball Association coming up soon, but there's also been some rumors around the sports world that we might address as well.
We'll cover all that and much more on Coin Flip Podcast. Till next time, guys. Thank you.
Peace.